I am going to focus on the Ten Commandments in just one verse, and this is just going to be an introductory message, and I titled this Moms, Giants or Monsters, because that's oftentimes how sometimes people experience mothers, wonderful giants who help them, or scary monsters. Okay, so here we go. And table of contents, I'm going to be introducing, Brenda's going to be reading a target verse, text, and it's going to be the Ten Commandments. And then I'm going to give you a little background on the Ten Commandments. And then we're going to talk about how God's designed us for families and relationships, okay? And then worship and benediction. All right, some of this you guys know about our church and so forth, but it's just to remind us who we are. All right, here is our text. Okay, interestingly, I found Pastor Joe Castada on YouTube, and he's been a pastor, preaching pastor for years and years, and he said he gave his thoughts about Mother's Day messages. And I thought what he said was really interesting. He says a lot of times Mother's Day messages, pastors preach, encouraging mothers to be better mothers. And he rightly said, Mother's Day, please don't discourage moms. Encourage them. So today's your day. We want to encourage you. Then he also said sometimes pastors preach on Mother's Day saying motherhood's kind of a Christian virtue. Somehow moms with their sacrificial love, unconditional love, hospitality are the epitome of what we all should be doing as Christians, right? Loving people, taking care of people. That was an interesting point. Then he also said sometimes motherhood is preached as a sign of God's call to nurture others, and then remember the milk of God's word to grow, as the New Testament talks about. Then lastly, he says sometimes pastors preach about mothers and the trials and tribulations of motherhood, and how some mothers are really hurting, and encouraging to be better. And then he reminds us that, remember, in all of life, it's God who's faithful and gives us grace. And that's what we want to trust in. Okay, so, and then lastly, interestingly, he said, hey, on Mother's Day, don't preach on Mother's. You don't have to preach on Mother's Day. You can actually just have a celebration, and I love that. So I decided to do something fun with the kids to bless moms, all right? So our target verse is Exodus. Brad, you want to come? Exodus 20, this is where we find the Ten Commandments.
Please stand for the reading of the word, if you can. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your manservant or your maidservant, or your cattle, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land which the Lord your God gives you. You shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, or his maidservant, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's.
Thanks, guys. All right, so the word honor in the fifth commandment is kabod, and it's an interesting Hebrew word. It's used in all kinds of ways, but it's used to for us, calling us to honor God, and interestingly, honor our father and mother. So that gives us a sense of God's heart. And the word denotes something very heavy, that has weight, substance. And God should have a lot of weight and substance in your life and your mother and father, okay? And next week I'll describe more of that. All right, but here's some interesting things about the Ten Commandments, because I'm going to start to stir your curiosity. Here we go. In the 13th century, the Spanish rabbinical painting emerged in Western civilization, and Moses was depicted with 2 tablets. And ever since, we think there are 2 tablets, first 5 commandments on one side, and the last 5 in the other side, right? Isn't that your view of the Ten Commandments? That's not necessarily correct. Older rabbinical tradition actually suggests there were 13 commandments, not 10. And the 2 tablets in ancient history doesn't say 5 and the other 5. It's all 10 or 13 is on one, and all 10 and 13 is other. We have 2 sets of 10 commandments. All right. And interesting enough, in the Hebrew word that's translated commandment is better translated word. These are 10 wisdom, thoughts and words, insights that God wants us to have to arrange our relationship to God and arrange our relationship to each other. And remember, we're called to be images of God. So when I'm moving towards God and I'm moving towards other people, it's a similar movement. And that's why John, remember, says you can't say you love God and hate your neighbor. The truth is not in you. Okay, interesting? All right. And I'm going to develop that for you next week, the background of Ten Commandments. So next time, I'll give you the historical context of Exodus 20, 10 Commandments or words, and the 2 divisions and how they play out in your life. And notice it says, honor your father and mother, that it may go well for you in the land that I'm bringing you. It's the first commandment with the blessing. And the first 5 commandments about God, the last 5 commandments about each other, and they're the same thing. One is about heaven, and one is about earth, and they overlap. Okay, 10 words. Okay, so now humans are interesting. God's designed us to be organized around stories, and they're essentially 5 stories. You and I are essentially storytellers. Who you are is organized around the stories we have. Humans are living stories. The sense of who you are, your identity comes from your stories. If you want to get to know someone, get their stories. Young people, when you start to date, the most important thing to do is sit down and get their stories. get as much of their family stories, personal stories you can. Okay, Brenda and I, photos when we were first married, and then recently as we've been pastoring St. Emma Ecclesia. This is my brother, story of my brother that I took care of from 1981 to about 2018. And the 5 stories every human has: a story of your birth, story of your name. By the way, when you start to date someone, get these 5 stories. Story of your birth, name, and family. And today we're focusing on Mother's Day, okay? And story of your love and story of your work. And so here's a picture of my mom and dad, married, and my mom. And so stories about our mothers. So I'm going to just share a couple stories, and then I'm going to see if someone wants to share a story about their mother. Okay, my grandmother, Grandma Kilpatrick, was the first lady, and she loved to help people. So she had an outreach from the First Presbyterian Church to Hispanic migrants, and in the 50s, who tended to live in camps outside of Salem. And so she would ask me to help her, and I would go with her and to run the movie projector, being able to show movies and bless the folks who came in to work our lands and harvest. And my grandmother, I love the fact that she, for some interesting reason, she decided to help a Hispanic family to become permanent Salem resident. And so she helped a Hispanic family to buy a house here in Salem. It's the first house in the 50s that a Hispanic family bought. Okay, and I drive by that house all the time. So that's the story of my grandmother. Now my mom was a national Sunday school teacher leader, and she was constantly writing and Sunday school curriculum. Then she would fly back to Philadelphia, where the headquarters for United Presbyterian Church was, and I would hear her in her office typing away on her electric typewriter. Well, when I wanted to talk to my mom, I would come stand at the threshold, a door to her office where she had her typewriter, and she would notice me, and she would stop typing, and she would physically turn her chair and look at me and say, "David, what's on your heart?" And I would share something, and then she would respond to that, and then I would leave. But sometimes I would leave in the hallway, just stand, and there was a pause before the electric typewriter started, which told me my mom was paying attention to me. She didn't do, yeah, David, what's on your mind? Well, let's talk to Dad about it. Okay, No, she stopped typing and looked at me, and she didn't immediately go back to typing. It stuck with me. All right, and my mom had such poor eyesight that she couldn't get a driver's license. So when I became 16, I became a designated driver. And I actually enjoyed driving her to Fred Meyer's or whatever to go shopping. And I would stand in line, and I would just enjoy being with her. I think part of the reason is because she paid attention to me. Okay, now I've told you 2 stories about my mom. What about your stories about your mom? Yes.
I also have 2 stories.
Okay, go for it, quick.
Okay.
Just checking.
The first one
Loud.
is something that me and all of my siblings.
Come on up here and speak.
That's right.
Right here, sit in the chair. Go for it.
Okay. Something that me and all of my siblings remember is that when we were a lot younger, nervous. Don't have to do it in front
Close
of
your
crowds,
eyes. Just close your eyes. Tell
All
the
my
story.
siblings remember when we would get out of the bath or when we would come inside from playing in the sprinklers, my mom would always run up to us with a towel and go towel monster and just dry us off that way. And it was so fun. And we all loved it and we all remember it. And
Wow.
me and my siblings still talk about it. And the second thing is when I was a lot younger, I would sit in my mom's bed with her while she crocheted, and I would crochet as well. I only knew how to do a chain, but I just made a really, really long chain. That's awesome. And my mom would just sit there crocheting, and I would just sit there crocheting as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Great.
I love that story.
Anybody else with a mom story? Anybody else?
The mom story.
Okay, have a seat. Tell us a mom story.
The thing I love about my mom is she really valued reading, and so we had like Encyclopedia Britannica books. We had Encyclopedias of the Bible. I read all of the Encyclopedia Brown books, all the Hardy Boy books. Like I read all the books on the presidents. She had all these little kids books. So my mom really sparked my intellectual interest at a very young age. Just books all the time. Really awesome.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Philip. Anybody else? No, one story. No, sorry. Okay, anybody else? Bren, you got a story about your mom?
I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me think. Okay, I guess two short stories. One was, we only had one car, and my dad would take the car to work, and if my mom wanted the car, she'd have to take him to work. But most of the time, we didn't have a car, so on Saturdays or days off from school like that, we would have to walk to the store to do shopping. And so I remember she always wanted to walk to this bakery to get donuts and sweets. And so that's one memory. Another memory is she used to make the best lemon meringue pie.
That's true.
She made the lemon meringue pie, and she always would have to have it perfect. And one time the crust wasn't perfect, and she just pitched it in the garbage and started all over again. And then she would always let me lick the bowl. So good memories of that. She made the best pie.
Your mom made the best crust I've ever tasted. In fact, she ruined my pie crust taste because I can't stand commercial pies that are horrible. Just like, what is this? All right, we are the stories we tell. And your stories, pardon?
One more story.
You have a story? Go ahead.
Yes. My mother would always tell two stories. She would always tell the story of when I was a baby and we had a dog named Biscuit. And I don't know, I was like 18 months old, and Biscuit, he woke her up in the middle of the night because I was blue. And then she would always tell me that story. And then she would tell me my name is Christ Bear. And then she would always tell me that I was going to do something great. She knew that God saved me so I could do something great.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
That's very cool.
awesome. Yeah,
My mom would get up in the morning and she had a firm belief that you should be dressed head to toe and completely put together before you came out of your bedroom. So every morning she would get ready in her room, but she would turn worship music on like full blast and worship God every morning while she was getting ready. And she would do her devotions in her room, and has never left me all growing up of just the example that she set that God was first in her life. And it has just like stayed with me as one of the foundations of how to live my life as a woman is to put God first and to spend time with Him as the forefront of my life.
wow, thank you. All All right, yeah, Suri.
So my grandma on my dad's side was about as loving as you could ever imagine. She was like the grandma that everybody loves and talks about. She was a 100% German. Both my grandparents and my dad, both proud, me halves. Christian lady, always reading her Bible, and whenever you'd go to the house, in her younger years, she'd always be baking bread, slamming the raisin bread on the counter. You know, she had a big freezer downstairs. We'd come to visit, she'd go downstairs, come up with something goody that she had made, whether it be fudge or chocolate chip cookies, frozen chocolate chip cookies. She was the best cook. She was an amazing cook and so my mom couldn't boil water. So she learned from my grandma and she became the best cook. My mom could just grab cans and stuff from the cupboard and stuff from the fridge and throw it together, and it was just an amazing dinner. Until one Halloween when she made this god-awful eggplant thing. And she said, you have to eat this before you go out trick-or-treating. And you know, I love candy, so I choked this down and threw it up. But my mom, I remember being a little girl and playing with my cousins, and my mom would make one of my like memories that I just sticks in my head that I love was my mom would cut the crust off the peanut butter and jelly and into force, and then and she'd make it with butter and jelly and peanut butter, and then you just be able to eat the corner center out of the triangle to get the good jelly and stuff like that. But mom was full of life, an extrovert. She loved the theater. She loved hosting parties and having lots of people over.
All right.
And unfortunately, I lost her very young. She was 48, so I missed her.
All right. So, and 5 stories. We're starting to hear stories. That's how you get to know people. Okay. Story of your birth, name, family, love, and work. But we Christians remember the greatest story is story of God's love, the gospel, the good news, and God's purpose for us, redemption. And God has never stopped his commitment to redeem and renew earth. So what all the evil and darkness we see in the world, God's salvation is designed to redeem all that. And the Bible tells you in story forms the story of God's redemption. All right, so worship harmony. We're going to come up, lead the people in the call to worship. You stand over here.
Please stand. Her children rise up and call her blessed.
Her husband also, he praises her.
Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all.
Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.
Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her work praise her in the gates.
Today, on Mother's Day, we honor all mothers, both here and elsewhere, and honor the memory of our dear mothers who are with the Lord. Thank you.